Well, welcome back. Or I guess
Hello.
we're back. And this is WTF Stories and Advice. I'm Caroline Cranshaw.
And I'm Daryl Gove.
And we are back with a new season. And we're actually going to call it something a little bit different. It's still WTF Stories and Advice. But this season is going to be Riding the Crazy Train.
Ooh.
And the reason why I decided it should be called that is that's what my father used to always accuse me of doing, is riding the crazy train. Because I have always been interested in conspiracy theories. And not necessarily that they're all true, but I find them fascinating. And I think there is truth behind a lot of them. Not always. There's a lot of crazy people out there that do all kinds of ridiculous stuff to make things seem real. Like, I don't know if I really believe in Bigfoot. Do you believe in Bigfoot?
No, I wouldn't say so. But I believe there definitely could have been a bigger human-ape thing in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly could have happened. We found was it the Denovans or the Denovanians in Indonesia in the little cave, the little hobbit people, just a few years ago. A new branch of human evolution. So it's just as possible we could find big skeletons in a cave somewhere. So I think maybe it came from somewhere, but I don't think that there's a Yeti stalking the mountains, no.
Or the Loch Ness Monster, which is Scotland, where you're from.
Yeah, and Loch Ness it's so deep and so big. You could fit all the other lakes and lochs in the UK into that, and there'd be room left. It's very, very deep, and it goes from one side of the country all the way across to the other. Like, if you look at a map, you'll just see this scour across Scotland. So I don't necessarily think there's a big monster in there, but quite probably there's just some big, I don't know, whale or something that's evolved from a sea creature in a big freshwater loch. I don't know, but I think it's big enough that there could be something there.
Well, who knows? I don't think we'll be covering those stories, so you don't have to worry.
No. Famous monsters of the deep.
That's just not really my thing. So I thought we would start. The first one we are going to cover is Project Bluebeam. And yes, and you don't know anything about Project Bluebeam, do you?
I don't know anything about Project Bluebeam.
Yeah. I'll tell you the reason why I became interested in this particular one, and then we'll go into the details of Project Bluebeam. And I think it's quite relevant right now. So how I got interested in this particular theory was when I was a kid growing up, I would ask my father about aliens, and are aliens real? And I found it quite interesting. And he was like, no. And so the reason why he would say no is that my grandfather was a colonel and a doctor in the Army. He was quite high ranking. He was stationed in Colorado. And one of the things he was doing out in the desert by New Mexico was they would set off atomic bombs. And he was a radiologist, was one of the things he was. And so he would test the radiation levels and like the effects on people. My grandfather used to, it was quite crazy. He used to always tell me, oh, don't worry about radiation. I used to just watch these big mushroom clouds go off and ash would rain down on us. And I would just brush it off with a broom off the soldiers and they're all fine. I'd be like, okay, I guess I don't need to worry about that x-ray. And
were they fine later? Do we know this or no?
Well, I mean, he lived to his late 90s, smoking and drinking and living large. So
here we go.
He was fine. I don't know about the other people, though.
Hills Have Eyes. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's an amazing movie. Actually, my mum and dad went there on their first date, apparently. They go camping in the outback in USA, and it's where they'd done this nuclear testing, and the people had kind of transformed and morphed into these kind of I don't know, deranged hillbilly radiation people. So definitely watch that. But carry on.
Okay, yeah. I'll have to watch that. So my father would say, no, there's no aliens because your grandfather was stationed out right by Roswell. And he told me when apparently there was that supposed crash that it really was a weather balloon. And he saw the weather balloon and he was involved in the cleanup with that. And it was completely false. And there was never some alien crash out in the desert. And don't worry about it. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'll have to ask him about that. And I had like a bit of a UFO sighting when I was 19. So this must have been around the same time because I think I brought it up with my father again because I was going to a party with a friend and we decided to park up on this hill overlooking San Francisco Bay and smoke a joint, as you do, and because I think we were a bit early for the party. And we see this thing fly through the sky with green and orange lights, and it moved very strange. And then it like crashed into the water of the bay, and then it kept going under the water with the lights going. And we were like, ah! And drove away very quickly, drove to the party, and we're like, we saw a UFO, blah, 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 blah. People were like, whatever, you're high. But the next day, there was on the front page of the paper, they said thousands of people reported a meteor. And don't worry that there was like UFO sightings and it wasn't a UFO. It was just a meteor that crashed into the bay, and not to worry. But a meteor would have never moved like this. And it wouldn't go into the water and then keep going under the water with these like orange and green lights. It was like bizarre. I couldn't really tell what shape it was or anything because it's dark at night and you could just see these lights on it. But I tell my dad this and he's like, again, there are no UFOs. You would have saw a meteor and you're just stoned and blah, blah, blah. So the next family dinner, there's all of us there. My grandfather's there. And I was like, Granddaddy, like I heard that you were stationed out by Roswell and you saw what was supposedly the UFO, but it was actually just a weather balloon. Like, tell me about that. And he's like, I never said that. And I was like, what? My dad was like, Dad, yes, you did. You said that it was a weather balloon. He's like, I never said that, and I will take it to my grave. Like he's slamming the table.
What?
Yeah, to my grave. And I was like, no aliens, huh, Dad? Yeah. And my father's sitting there looking absolutely shocked. He like turned white, and he was like, but Dad, you said it was a weather balloon. And he's like, I said, never again. I will never talk about it. And I had this really out there uncle, who was just laughing his ass off. And he was like, David, who's my father, accept it. Aliens are real. And Dad knows all about it. And he's never going to tell you anything. Oh. Yeah. And I was just like, holy shit.
That's so mean.
I know. So we had the dinner and then I'm talking to my uncle. And I was like, do you think he's seen something? And he's like, absolutely he's seen something. Did you see his reaction? And he says he's not going to tell us about it. I mean, he is the type that would never, he honors his word and he would take it to the grave. He's like, there's lots of stuff out there. And the military has definitely been involved in all kinds of crazy things. So just check it out. And so I remember like trying to do a bit of a search on it and coming across this article that talked about Project Bluebeam. And there was this guy who, his name was Serge Monast, and he was a journalist in Canada. And he was the first, I think, to kind of break this story. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because yesterday, Congress held a hearing on UFOs. And apparently they had some timeline that they had, like, they were given 180 days that they had to disclose information about UFOs. Apparently, they don't call them UFOs anymore. They call them unexplained aerial phenomenon. So there are UAPs.
Okay, yep.
So that's the new one. But
because it might not be an object, it could be a light. Or it could be, I don't know, Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that. Lightning, ball lightning.
Yeah, so yesterday, Congress had their first open discussion, I don't know what else you would call it, first time in 50 years that they have talked about UFOs, and they showed several videos of UFOs and that, or UAPs, I should say, that were unexplained. So
in Congress,
they apparently had this in Congress yesterday.
Okay.
So they did this 90-minute kind of disclosure and talked about these different UAPs or unexplained aerial phenomenon. And then they went in for a private session that is classified. So they didn't it was nothing groundbreaking. They just showed a few videos, but it seems like UFOs have been escalating, or UAPs, I should say, are escalating. There's more and more sightings lately. So this is where Project Bluebeam comes in. So there was this guy, Serge Monast. He was a journalist and was quite interested in it. And I think he was in Montreal or Quebec. He was French speaking. But he did this expose on Project Bluebeam. So it's out there. It's really out there. I've heard about it for years. Did a bit of research, he gave a speech on it, and I've read the transcript. I'm going to put all the links below so you can do your own research. Now, I'm not saying this is actually true, but I think it's just interesting for discussion. And if this shit starts to happen...
Okay, what? Tell me.
You don't be afraid, and just know we're probably being manipulated. Okay, so...
Okay, I'm intrigued. You have my interest.
According to Serge Monast, there was a 4-step project designed by NASA and the United Nations that would allow them to create their ultimate goal of a one-world government.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some really good information. I just want to give credit where credit's due from an article by a woman named Kara Goldfarb, and it's on All That's Interesting, and it's Project Bluebeam. So I got most of my information from this, and fabulous article. I'll put the link below. But the whole plan basically is they're going to do something, and I will explain the something, in order for us to all agree to a one-world government.
Okay.
And NASA's involved. So there's 4 stages of what they're going to do. So the first thing they are supposedly going to do is manufacture earthquakes in strategic locations around the world. And apparently, these earthquakes are going to unearth artifacts that are going to prove that religion is wrong, that we misconstrued it, that we have misunderstood religion, and it's going to discredit all religions. And the other thing, though, is that we have been being prepped for this plan for years, and that apparently they've funded lots of movies like 2001 Space Odyssey and Independence Day, and all these alien movies have been prepping us for what their plan is. And so there's going to, first of all, there's going to be these like man-made generated earthquakes that are going to unearth these artifacts that are going to like show there's something wrong with religion, or show...
It does sound like the next X-Men movie or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's out there. So the next step 2, is going to be this gigantic space show. And so during this stage of Project Bluebeam, there's going to be 3-dimensional holograms, as well as laser projections of holographic images that are going to be beamed across the sky. And what's going to be beamed is projections of Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, like all the different...
deities, or the
deities, yes, the people who, you know, the religions are based off of, and that they're gonna like all be in the sky. And apparently there's been photos of this, of like pictures of Christ up in the sky, in the clouds, and there's these different things. It's amazing.
Well, good luck putting up Muhammad, because you're not allowed to depict him, so they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, well, who are they going to go get mad at, right? Because it's going to be supposedly from the sky. There'll be no source.
Oh, so we won't know who did it.
And that they're going to do this with... No, it'll be with like satellites. It'll be with satellites. And so it'll be like, you know how people talk about the rapture and how there's these things coming, that So there'll be all these different deities in the sky, and they will talk to us in our own languages, and they will merge into one. And they will say that we are wrong about religion, and that really there's just this one, it's all the same, and that it's trying to get people to agree to one religion, right? And
do they think we're going to fall for that? We're going to watch that and go, oh, well, this light show is right, and everything I've believed my whole life is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're going to use laser generating satellites and project these all across the earth. And that apparently they're able to use some type of like sonic waves or, sound that's going to project in our own language of it speaking to us.
Okay.
Right. And it will. So then with this is the third stage, is that this mind control will be implemented. And so they say that communication devices will send waves to reach each person within their own minds, convincing them that their own God is speaking to them from the very depths of their own soul. Like, that's a direct quote.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are these rays going to be able to reach people's minds? So according to Monast, such rays from satellites are fed from the memories of computers that have stored massive data about every human on Earth and their languages. The rays will then interlace with our natural thinking to form what we call diffuse artificial thought. And you think about how much data is stored on each one of us now. Like, if you've had a cell phone, if you've had a computer, there's a massive amount of data stored about you, basically.
Yeah.
So the next phase after that will be an alien invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it'll be alien invasion, but at the same time, the rapture is going to take place. So supposedly people will be floating up into the sky, and it'll just supposedly make us so crazy and so afraid that we will agree to whatever is being proposed of how we can keep ourselves safe from this. Right? So there's going to be, he believed there will be other elements that will cause this, or will get us to agree to what's going to happen, or to this one world government. So one component will be the phasing out of cash. And so this guy talked about this in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
So that the plan will be they'll execute a financial crisis, and not a complete crash, but like enough to allow them to introduce some kind of in-between currency before they introduce their electronic cash to replace all paper or plastic money. Which is interesting when you think about cryptos and you think about how the markets are all crashing at the moment, and they're definitely trying to phase out cash, at least here in New Zealand. Like, I had to get cash the other day for something. I had to go to 5 ATMs before I could get cash out.
Wow.
5.
Wow.
Yes. And they are definitely planning on going cash free within a year or two.
Well, New Zealand's kind of led that for a long time. Like, since the 90s, we've had electronic fund transfer at point of sale, the FPOS, and
PayWave was New Zealand.
Going overseas, it always felt like going back 10 years when people were using cash and they were signing for things, or we were just putting a chip and pin. For like 25 years ago, we were doing that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. But so he came out and said all these things. And then his children, who were homeschooled, apparently were taken into custody and taken off of him. And then he died of a heart attack. And he had like no existing health conditions, never had any history of heart attacks. And one of his close friends as well, who was involved in it, also died of a heart attack at a young age. I think he was like 51. But the last line of his manifesto is, "No one is safe in a totalitarian police state."
Yeah.
So it's just interesting with the way the world is going, with how they really are trying to push us towards a one world government. There is no doubt about that. And that is a UN agenda. Like New Zealand, our government is completely trying to roll out Agenda 2030, and they're open about it. And if you don't know anything about that, we'll do another podcast on that because that's fascinating. But It really is about more control over the people, no cash, digital currency that can be appropriately taxed, right? So there's no tax evasion. That it can be programmed, that it's like, you've had your quota of a burger this month. It's time for crickets.
So, like, the Agenda 2030 aside, because I think we should definitely talk about that separately, and it seems like to me, it seems like that's definitely on the way. The Project Bluebeam, it's quite a claim.
Yeah,
it's quite a story, and I just have in my mind that this image of all these people at the top going, right, let's make this one world government. We're going to manufacture a crisis. We're going to have a pandemic, a financial crisis. Your governments will do such a bad job because we're going to put leaders in charge that deliberately do a really bad job and divide your country and shatter your economies. And then we'll go, oh, we'll save you. We're one world government. We're the UN, which is right now governments around the world are signing up to a policy whereby the UN and the World Health Organization can make laws on behalf of countries if there's a pandemic. So I get that.
It supersedes all countries' laws.
National laws.
So we will have no choice.
But then I have a picture of these same people at the top going, let's distract the people that are the researchers. Let's distract the conspiracy theorists. Let's distract the people that might fight against this by making this story about Bluebeam. And let's have them think that this is all going to happen. And it might, and it could be real. I guess if we start having earthquakes and unearthing things, I'm going to be like, right, what's next? Laser show in the sky. But if that were to happen, of course, it would be terrifying. The totalitarian state, the police state, is the most scary thing in the world to me. Just the lack of freedom that would involve.
Well, and that's something we have directly experienced in New Zealand. I mean, we had one of the craziest lockdowns you can imagine. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be Jesus in the sky. I don't know if artifacts are going to be uncovered, but it wouldn't surprise me, the alien invasion type of stuff, because that would scare the shit out of people. And it's like, we all need to band together. We need to be one world. We are one people. We're one race because we are the human race, and we need to all protect each other. I think it would be a great way to get people to agree to, and with these food shortages, like it's crazy what's happening.
And it didn't need to happen. I was reading about in the USA with the formula shortage and the baby formula, and how they banned imports from Europe. They had made this policy here, this policy there, and it's just been almost manufactured, not necessarily deliberately, but it could easily have been avoided with a lot less interference by the government. And then the war in Ukraine, I'm not saying that's manufactured, but of course it's going to have a big impact. At the same time as that, you've got other countries hoarding fertilizer and hoarding this and banning the export of wheat here and there. That's just going to cause big problems. And yeah, people are going to start to think, shit, our countries aren't working. My uncle warned me about this in the 90s.
Yeah, same.
He was like, they're going to try and make a one world government. And when that happens, just know that that's the devil. That's the Antichrist. And I didn't believe him, of course, at the time. And I argued with him. I said, what's wrong with a one world government? That'd be great. No more wars.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize what it would actually mean, which is there's no government. We're under the control of big tech, big pharma, big oil.
Well, it's a technocracy, isn't it? And they all seem to be rolling out the same agenda. And I think there could be benefits to a one world government, but would it benefit people like us? You know, like,
well,
yes,
no.
if you're starving in another country and you have no food and no health care, and yeah, it might really benefit you, but is it going to be to the detriment of other people? And I think that people have a right to decide how they want to live. They have a right to, I mean, that's the beauty of going and moving to different places, is you can pick what kind of country you want to live in. Like I did that with New Zealand. I thought New Zealand was amazing. I mean, you're an expat as well. But when I came here, it was like much lower crime and everyone has health care and there's no homeless. And it was like this utopia to me. But it's in the past few years, it really is turning into this authoritarian state. And if you say anything or question anything, that's misinformation or disinformation. It's crazy. So it's interesting. I mean, is it going to happen? I don't know. But what I find interesting, and the reason why I wanted to do this particular one, is because I'm just seeing post after post, and maybe that's the algorithm that I've been being fed. But a lot of people are talking about Project Bluebeam, and it's just interesting that suddenly the government, after forever, who's always denied it, is suddenly turning around and saying, oh, by the way, UFOs are real, and here's some footage.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's kind of obvious that there are aliens, and even if there was nothing in Roswell, that even if that was a weather balloon, that doesn't change the fact that probably there are aliens. Have they visited Earth? I don't know. And if they have, and there's evidence, it'll be interesting to see that come out soon. Probably it was humans from 20,000 years ago that have just come back to check how we're getting on.
After the gene editing therapy they gave us. Yeah, I don't know. Isn't that what Scientology believes? They believe, I can't even remember what they believe, but it's something out there.
I don't know, but they do believe that because they use hypnosis in their... I think I mentioned this before in a podcast. I was at the spiritual fair and I opened the Scientology book and I just opened it at a page. I'm like, said to the guy, that's a hypnosis script. I didn't know you guys used hypnosis. And he's like, no, we don't. I'm like, no, yeah, look, this is a hypnosis script you've got in here. It's called an induction. We use it all the time with our clients. And like, no, we don't use hypnosis. And in fact, if you've ever used hypnosis, you can't be a Scientologist because it damages your brain forever.
What?
And I was like, oh, really? So I went away and I was like, oh my God. So I don't know what they do other than they hypnotize people by putting hypnosis in the Scientology book. That's pretty much the limit of my knowledge. And they teach you to detox really well.
They do that. They do. But it's interesting. I do believe they think we are descendants of aliens or brought here by aliens. And yeah, it's a fascinating... I mean, I would love to know more about that. It's funny, I used to do this radio show, and the producer was an ex-Scientologist. And I tried my best to get information out of him, and he just, nope, nothing. He was a vault. He did not give any information about it, but he just said it, got to a point where it wasn't for him. And yeah, I would love to know more. So if you guys have any stories about... well, Project Bluebeam, if you know anything about that, or Scientology, or if there's certain conspiracy theories, or as I call them, spoiler alerts, that you'd want us to cover, send it in. There's quite a few I want to do, and that's why I thought we'll do Riding the Crazy Train. But...
and so that you guys know, I didn't know that this was going to be the series, but I'm quite excited. I think it's going to be quite fun. I hope that you know that I'm going to play the skeptic here. Because I'm like... but I think that will make for good combo.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's all true. It could be that guy Manast, like, how would he get all this information about NASA and the American government, right? And I know from reading his transcript, he's quite a religious person. So he believed it was kind of like an antichrist thing in the end of times. So how valid is his information? I don't know. But apparently there was other people coming out around the same time who didn't know him, who didn't hear about his stories, who talked about the same one. And I know that it's Operation Blue Book is a government operation, or a U.S. government operation, that is studying and collecting data on UFOs or UAPs. Ooh. So maybe he just had Blue Book and Bluebeam mixed up, and I don't know. But
I'm sure he took it more seriously than to get a word mixed up. But
yeah,
but maybe it comes from that. Like, it's let's use this information, beam it out into the sky, and use it to take control. There's always some rich, powerful group of people that want to take control of others. It's been that way throughout history. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's happening right now, or it's going to happen again. Of course it is. I mean, you can just watch some of these people on TV and you're like, you're fucking crazy. Like, how people have any trust in you is beyond me. Some of these rich, powerful people, because you can just see in their eyes a maniacal glee when people are getting hurt. It's obvious to anybody that has any ability to read body language that some of these people don't care. And yes, they're going to hurt us if they can. But just because someone has a plan, and here's where I always take heart, even if this is true, imagine that this whole thing is true. Just because that's a plan doesn't mean that they'll pull it off.
Yeah.
Like they have this idea that, oh, we'll unearth this and everyone will go, ooh, or we'll beam something in the sky and everyone will go, ah. But everyone might look at that in the sky and laugh.
That's what I'll do.
They might just go like, what the fuck's that? And you're speaking in my head. That's some cool new technology of Apple, you know?
The speaking in the head would freak me out. That would freak me out. But then, I guess I'll know I'm not going crazy. And then it's just Operation Bluebeam or Project Bluebeam.
I'm sure you'd have to have some graphene in your body somehow in order to make the waves resonate with it and cause the sound. And probably you don't have any, so you're probably fine.
Well, that's a thing, isn't it? It's very interesting. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I just thought we would cover this one to start. And we're going to cover lots of really cool ones. But I've got a list. I'm gonna
Can we cover Project Blue Balls next?
Is that a real project, or is that just what you do to your partner?
No, there's never. No, there's this movement called NoFap going about, giving all the scientific evidence for the benefits of not masturbating or having sex and why it's so good for you. That I don't think, as far as I know, there's not much scientific evidence for being any good. So it's just some conspiracy to get people to hold on to their semen. It's called Project Blue Balls.
Is it called Project? Yeah, I know NoFap. And the reason why I know about that is because I'm a hypnotherapist and I do a lot of sex therapy. And so I see a lot of guys who have erectile issues and premature ejaculation issues. And most of them have been or are addicted to porn. So they've got to go on a porn diet. I'm like, no porn for you. It's messing your brain up. But so I've got hypnosis things you can listen to on YouTube, and then they'll put them in these NoFap like forums and stuff. And then I'll get these NoFap guys messaging me. So I do know about that. I don't really want to talk about blue balls because
No.
I talk about it at work almost every day.
No, let's talk to the more alien-y ones. That sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's just conspiracies. You always have to be careful with those. But I just don't understand. Like, my father thinks I'm absolutely nuts. He thinks I'm crazy. And that's okay. That's why
He's probably accurate.
Yeah. But hey, I have fun and I find things interesting. But I just don't know how you can dismiss things completely without investigating. Like, how can you say something is not true unless you do some investigation? If someone asks me about certain things, and if I haven't done any investigation, I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't looked into it. But if I have looked into it and there is contradicting information that's from the main narrative, then it's something to be looked at.
You look further.
Yeah. And where's transparency? Like 50% of the U.S. government's budget is, what do they call it? The black budget, where they don't
50%.
have. It's something like 50%. It's insane that they spend it on like defense, but they don't have to tell us what it's spent on.
And once it's defense, they don't have to subdivide and say, this is going on new tanks, and this is going on training and troops, and this is going on a new airbase. It's just defense.
And meanwhile, people don't have health care. People are hungry. Babies can't even get formula. Like, what the hell? Like, when is it enough? It's just interesting. And we're going to talk a lot more about it. We are going to be here much more regularly, and also with our little advice and tips. And if you've got a story to tell or a question you want to ask us, write us in. You can write us at wtfstoriesandadvice@gmail.com. And we're just happy to be back. It's been a while.
Hey, please tell us your crazy stories, especially if they're to do with conspiracy theories or any of the unexplained woo stuff that if it's happened to you, then, we can read it out and see what people think. And yeah, it's great to be back here with you, Caroline. Hope to do this again very shortly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for listening. If you like us, give us a 5-star review and share it with your friends.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.